Welcome to the lesson on the human reproductive cycle. In this lesson, we'll take a look at the human female reproductive cycle, also called menstruation. We'll also discuss twinning, embryonic development, and types of development among other types of organisms, and sample gestation periods. All right, we're going to start with this diagram. It's the last diagram that's in your blue book. And it's the menstrual cycle for the female, also called the human female reproductive cycle. What you're going to note about this cycle is that the first 4 days here and the last 4 days here are the same time period. The menstrual cycle takes place over a course of about 28 days, give or take a day or two. And during the menstrual period, this would be the shedding of the uterine lining. So this is what's taking place on days 1 through 4 here at the beginning of the diagram, and on days 1 through 4 here on the end of the diagram. Okay. What's important to note is that as each hormone peaks, and we're going to go through that in a second here, it turns off the hormone before it, and as each hormone falls in production, it turns on the hormone after it. Okay? And we've already talked about pretty much these hormones already in our previous lesson on the endocrine system. But let's run through this once again. Neat diagram because it shows the uterine lining, where it thickens and then where it sheds, and also what happens in the ovary at the same time. All right, here we go. It starts out with a peak in FSH, which you remember is follicle stimulating hormone. This deals with the production of the egg, and you can see that in the ovary here, here's your egg with a follicle around it, and you can see that it's as it's peaking here that egg is developing. As FSH falls, it triggers the increase in estrogen, which also decreases follicle stimulating hormone, and the peak in estrogen results in the thickening of the uterine lining here. This begins to fall as LH, luteinizing hormone, begins to peak. Therefore, luteinizing hormone causes ovulation. And this is, of course, the release of the egg into the fallopian tube. Okay, so there you have it. There's ovulation releasing the egg. As luteinizing hormone decreases, this triggers progesterone to peak. And progesterone is dealing with an increase in the corpus luteum stage here, which lasts about 14 days. If fertilization does not take place, progesterone will then decrease, and you can see all 4 hormones decrease at the same time here. Okay, and that will start the menstrual period, the shedding of the uterine lining in the female. All right, so that'll do it for the female reproductive cycle. Let's take a look at some other topics here as well. Next, we'll discuss twinning. There are 2 types. Identical twins are one egg and sperm that share an amniotic sac. They are genetically identical. This is one egg and sperm that have split into 2 individuals or more. Fraternal twins are when 2 different eggs are fertilized by 2 different sperm, and each have their own amniotic sac, and there are no more genetically similar than ordinary siblings. Next, let's discuss embryonic development. The first stage, of course, is that the embryo becomes, after fertilization, it becomes a zygote. The zygote undergoes what is called cleavage, and this is where the cells continue to divide. It forms a morula, which is a solid ball. So it's nicknamed the solid ball stage. The morula becomes a blastula, which is the hollow ball stage. This forms a gastrula, which forms the digestive tract, and Siamese twinning could occur at this point, and this of course would be a disorder. The neural tube formation occurs next. This is when disorders of spina bifida and anencephaly can occur during this stage. And then differentiation. And of course, differentiation, as we learned earlier this year, is when all these cells differentiate and become different tissues and parts of your body. During the blastula stage, the embryo can lose cells and still come out normal. But after differentiation, losing cells means losing organs. All cells have the same DNA, but during differentiation, genes turn on and off in a coordinated fashion to direct the development of all the different systems. After gastrulation, 3 layers of tissues form. One is called the endoderm, and from the endoderm, the digestive tract, the lungs, the liver, and the glands form. The mesoderm. From the mesoderm, the reproductive system, your blood, the circulatory system, bone, and muscle form. And the last type of tissue is called ectoderm. And from ectoderm, we get our epidermis, our skin, the nerves, and our brain. All right, next let's take a look at types of development. External fertilization and external development. Organisms that perform this type of development where their eggs are fertilized externally outside the body and they develop externally as well is in amphibians and fish. Frog eggs, for example. Next example, internal fertilization and external development. Most reptiles and all birds. The hard shell prevents drying out, but requires layers of membranes to do gas exchange, called the chorion. Stores waste in the allantois and contain enough food to last until the hatching. And this, of course, is the yolk sac. So internal fertilization, external development. And a key word to associate that would be organisms that lay eggs. Internal fertilization and some development within the female, but most development externally. Some reptiles do this in non-placental mammals. There's no placenta as an interface and requires birth while still relatively undeveloped. You think of any organisms that perform this type of fertilization and development? And the last kind, of course, is internal fertilization and internal development. And that's, of course, what humans have, mammals. The placenta allows a fetus to remain inside the female for a longer period of time. All right, some examples of some sample gestation periods. A mouse takes 21 days. Gestation period, of course, is the amount of time it takes for the fetus to develop. A baby rabbit only takes 31 days to develop. A fox takes 51 days. A cat takes 60 days, about 2 months. A pig takes 114 days. Human is next. Human takes about 270 days. A cow is just a little longer than that. It takes 280 days. A horse takes 336 days. So nearly a year, not quite. About a month short, so about 11 months. An elephant takes an astounding 600 days for its gestation period. All right, that'll do it for our notes on the human reproductive cycle. Let's take a look at this animation, which will go into the cycle and hopefully help it make a little bit more sense to you.